10 questions that you should be asking your bookkeeper when you're considering hiring one for the first time, or just when you're considering a switch. So let's start off with scope of services. Or, kind of like if you can imagine when you're considering which restaurant to go to or something, what's on the menu. You got to know what's being served before you order, right? Get a detailed answer of like what actually all of the services available that they're providing. For example, is it just bookkeeping? There's a lot of bookkeepers out there that just do the bookkeeping, or some of them, they also handle personal taxes or corporate taxes, or maybe none of that. Do they provide some light to heavy financial forecasting, budgeting, payroll services? Their services should hopefully align with what you and your business need. Because some bookkeepers, they have a very limited number of services, and then some others are a complete full-on accounting department. So you really kind of have to assess and be really honest with yourself and try to, as much as you can, objectively look at what your business needs, not just in the interim, but in the immediate and distant future as well, both now and down the road, right? So look for a bookkeeper who can meet those needs, meet your requirements. At the most basic level, you need someone who can reconcile your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, any other accounts. You can reconcile to what the CRA has, liability accounts, loan accounts, your accounts receivable, your accounts payable. If you're operating on the cloud, let's say you're set up on, the two big players is QuickBooks Online, QBO for short, or Xero. But you may also be using other cloud softwares. There's some people that use FreshBooks, there's some people that use Wave, and then there's also the desktop softwares as well. Basically, the scope of services is really going to set the tone of what the bookkeeper's about. Now, some bookkeepers, they're limited in the sense of the services that they provide for a multitude of reasons, right? We talk to bookkeepers both in Canada and the United States every week. Every Friday morning, we hop on a weekly Zoom call. So we get a pretty good idea of what everyone else is doing. We kind of compare notes. And I will say that some bookkeepers, they either don't have the, nothing wrong with this, obviously, but they just don't have the resources or the desire to really branch out and do more services. They're just not interested in it, and that's fine. And then some just kind of do a little bit of everything. So, for us, we of course do full cycle bookkeeping. So that's, full cycle bookkeeping, it's start to finish. So what I mean by that is, let's say a big company wouldn't necessarily hire a contractor. They'd hire someone in-house, either working remotely or on site, like directly in the office. Sometimes that happens because just of the sheer volume of transactions. And so they would need someone easily 40 hours a week. And I've worked at companies like that. You can be the full-on controller, the one that kind of takes care of everything start to finish, but more likely there are AR clerks, so accounts receivable clerks or accounts payable AP clerks, and they handle all the payables, all the receivable traffic, and then the controller kind of oversees for quality and reporting and just kind of maybe some miscellaneous tasks here and there. We do full cycle bookkeeping. We don't take care of personal or corporate taxes. We partner with a few CPAs for that. We do some budgeting. We do some forecasting as well, which is super needed, especially with inflation running rampant right now. It's pretty chaotic for a lot of clients. It's crazy out there how inflation is affecting everything. And then we also do payroll as well. With our full cycle bookkeeping, we provide pretty detailed, comprehensive reports, and we don't just provide a report and that's it. We actually sit down with you and kind of translate those numbers. We really break it down for you. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer and explanation of the scope of services. So the second question, What's the credentials? To be honest, one criticism that I have nowadays is, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, but anyone can call themselves a bookkeeper. The industry is highly, highly unregulated. It drives me crazy. As a business owner, you should be doing due diligence. You should be cautious about who you're hiring. Partner with someone, work with someone who does have some kind of certification, degree or certificate, or, what's their experience look like? What other credentials? Now, I just caution you, because just because someone is certified in Xero or certified in QuickBooks Online, that just means they're certified in the software. It doesn't mean that they know bookkeeping as compared to a veteran bookkeeper, a seasoned bookkeeper. If you're watching this and you're operating on some kind of QuickBooks product, whether it be QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, ideally you'll want to search for someone who is QuickBooks certified and someone who is also eager to seek out more. And what I mean by that also is that QuickBooks and Xero as well, they have these conferences, typically once or more a year. So that's really good to keep the education fresh as well. When we're looking at talent and when we're trying to kind of figure out who the best fit is, not necessarily just personality and kind of who we like the look of, it's more so the confidence that we can feel and the passion as well, like the dedication, their expertise. You're putting your trust in them essentially. Like, to be honest, I mean, anyone who's taking care of your finances, it really is like a financial diary. Someone is paging through your business's diary, your finances. That is very intimate. And really, if you're wondering what the distinction is between a bookkeeper and an accountant, a bookkeeper is more ongoing support throughout the year. There are so many times where our clients have asked me questions that easily a CPA should be asking them, and I do make sure that they're aware of that. Sometimes it's kind of like middle ground, and I'll always be honest with them, and I'll always say, best to talk to your accountant about this, especially if it's more tax planning and strategic planning like that. One of our clients recently, when I told her that, she said, well, I actually deal with you more often, and I just feel more comfortable asking you this question instead of my accountant. And it's not like she doesn't value her accountant. It's almost like out of sight, out of mind, And I really don't take that for granted at all. I just thought that was an interesting kind of answer, and it kind of hit me in that moment. But I mean, you could be dealing with a certified bookkeeper. Do they have a license? Is your accountant a CPA? You could have a CPA certainly that does your books, but it will be a different price point for sure, usually. It's just about them staying up to date with best practices, with really solid accounting, really solid bookkeeping practices. So number 3, third question, is that level of expertise. It's important to remember that some bookkeepers are generalists, while others are specialists. So you need to figure out, are you okay with a generalist, or do you really need that specialist now? A specialist is going to deal with obviously more expert level. Sometimes it's a lot more confusing or more cleanup aspects. There's the kind of consequences that you find yourself grappling with. Like, when I think of a specialist in the bookkeeping world, it's usually very much industry driven. So for us, we don't deal with product-based businesses. We don't deal with retail, like brick or mortar, or even online, like e-commerce. We've just kind of moved away from that. I mean, at the end of the day as well, like the experience that someone can bring to your business, it can bring such different, fresh, objective insights and efficiencies that you may never have dreamed of or really witnessed before. And frankly, when you're dealing with someone new in the field in the sense of, oh, this is a bookkeeper that now is an entrepreneur, that's a different kind of arena. It's more so, oh, they have maybe a year or two in the industry, and now they just went off and started their own business. Or maybe they are employed, they're working for someone full time and they're just doing bookkeeping for clients on the side. There's definitely a lot of that happening. Just be aware there is that happening out there. And so do you need someone's attention more? Like, can they give you more attention? Something to think about. And then number 4, ask the potential bookkeeper, how familiar are you with my industry? I talked about just now, like, how there's so many different industries. Social media has completely added to this. AI as well. There's different kind of jobs and opportunities being created every day with all of this AI around us and everything. You really want to kind of ask them, like, do they work with, like, who do they enjoy working with? I have seen so many times where so many bookkeepers and so many accountants, if you were to ask them, what kind of industries do you work with? And they just default to the typical answer of, we help small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I've heard other people in the industry say, they look at that and they're like, you're not really saying anything. You're kind of going around the question, because it's almost like they kind of just help every industry. And I think it's okay to not help every industry. I think that's a bit of a trap. But again, it does depend on what you're trying to build here. Like, if you're trying to be a really big firm, then I guess, I don't know, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known for helping everyone, or do you want to be known for helping like these key areas that these industries need, right? So not just like how familiar are you with my industry, but you kind of want to also figure out what kind of companies have they helped, or are they helping right now? Like, what's the size of companies? Do they typically attract startups? Do they attract only sole proprietors mostly? Some bookkeepers only prefer working with corporations. Because, I'm sure you know this, right? Every industry has its nuances. Ultimately, cash flow comes up a lot. That pretty much affects every industry, but they all have their different nuanced concerns and trends. It's better to have someone who does know more of the ins and outs, retail versus manufacturing, or just a general consulting business. This is where the advice gets very strategic. One of our clients, they're working with this bigger bookkeeping firm in Vancouver. They were kind of like a blend of bookkeeping and consulting. And they basically told me that the advice that they were receiving was so generic. It was so general. They just didn't really feel like it was that useful. Sometimes when you get really generic advice, it kind of feels like dismissive. And I'll give you an example. So our client, they were trying to figure out how to make more money. And I guess this bookkeeping team, I don't know how many people they were dealing with, but I think it was a small team, maybe of a team of at least 3 people. And they were doing some advisory, giving them business advice. And they said, oh, if you raise your rates, you'll make more money. And that's not actually that helpful. It's how I look at it is, if you can Google the answer, that's not really good enough. That's not really good enough advice. You really want to provide meaningful, tailored, customized advice. And that just seems like a colossal waste of time. And it's actually, it's just, I don't know. I just feel like the bar should be higher when we're giving business advice. I feel like as a financial professional, you just need to raise the bar. You just need to tailor the advice. The clients deserve more. And so we always aim to give really specific advice, and we'll be honest. So, number 5, how does the bookkeeper communicate with clients usually? So, it's a lot of faith. You're putting your finances into the trust of someone else, and you're hoping that they're gonna get it right. So, I mean, bookkeepers, they have to, there's open and honest communication. So clients, they don't want to feel out of the loop. They don't want to feel like there's some distance there. Some clients, they are phone people. They love talking on the phone. Some are okay with Zoom. Some are text friendly. And then, of course, there's email. I just want to say, like, for us at Steelix, we started to put boundaries on this because there was one client in particular, like, he was old school, but I think he really appreciated the tech, but he was so used to talking on the phone. He was used to texting. I think it just got to the point where the bottleneck was starting. And we just had to start telling him, you know what, we need to just put a fence around this. We just want to have everything go through email because I can't be the sole receiver of this information, like the heads up on what was changing in the business. I can't get that on a phone call. I can't get that on a text. It just was too much. And so we wanted to streamline that. And so everything's through email right now. And we do have another kind of an encrypted way to kind of have clients upload things in a more secure manner, but here and there email we use. And a few clients, I'm not sure if you know the app Voxer, but we actually were first exposed to it by one of our clients, and then a few other clients actually use Voxer. We also use Slack. We don't use Voxer, but we are accessible on Voxer to some of our clients, but we use Slack internally. For example, there's some clients that have a Slack account and some clients that use Voxer and they're chatting to us and stuff. So we just make sure that, okay, if it's beyond what we want, they will have a slightly higher price each month for their service, because essentially we're kind of on call. It's like there's a special channel that we have to maintain beyond the basics of what we want to do. So they're aware of that and they're okay to pay a slightly higher for that accessibility, that increased accessibility to us. You want to kind of figure all this out up front. You want to have a really honest conversation about how does this bookkeeper work. You just want to be on the same wavelength because it just makes everything smoother. It becomes really awkward when you're dealing with someone who, like, let's say they're messaging you on social media and then they're messaging you on WhatsApp and then they're texting you, then they're calling you. It's kind of like, okay, there's 10 ways to get a hold of someone nowadays, and it's just too much. And it's okay to put a fence around that. In fact, I encourage you to put a fence around that. It's just, I know for me, I could have avoided a lot more headaches if I put a fence on that earlier. So figure that out sooner, especially if you're a bookkeeper watching this and you're trying to put a fence around things. Communication channels might be an area where you might need to. So good luck with that. I really hope that you figure that out, because that can be tough. That can be very tough, but you don't want clients walking all over you. Certainly, you need to figure out what works for you and see where you can compromise, right? So number 6, what service levels can you commit to? Basically, this just means, what's the ETA? Pretty much everything in the finance world, you're reporting to agencies all the time. You're reporting to the Ministry of Finance. If you're a product-based business and you're selling PST, you are reporting to the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, this big scary CRA. You're reporting to WorkSafe, and these all have deadlines. So you really want to figure out, how does this bookkeeper communicate to you regarding turnaround times, availability? It's kind of like when you're figuring out what's the weather forecast for the day. Like, is this going to derail your camping trip? You need to know if the weather's gonna jive, right? You don't want to be left hanging out to dry. It kind of goes back to the communication. You want very clear distinction of what the ETA is of any kind of project, especially if it's ad hoc. Any and all service providers can claim they're going to offer stellar service, right? But that's not really good enough. It's not good enough to say that. You kind of want to hear the specifics. Like, how are they going to clearly articulate what they're going to offer when? They should be able to, articulate that. And so what happens if those promises aren't met? this is not fun for me to talk about. There have been at least, I would say at least 2 or 3 times where this happened more so, I think, in year 1, actually. There were 2 clients where, I'm thinking back now, because they've been with us since year 1, where they were transitioning bookkeepers. So I was it's kind of interesting. I was in those meetings and deadlines hadn't been met, or, just things were just kind of, the client was dissatisfied. And what I mean by, like, if those promises aren't met, I mean, the bookkeeper was not showing accountability. They weren't reading the room, and it's just 2 words, like, I'm sorry. And it's really alarming to me that, like, I've worked at places like where that's what the client is needing. The client is needing someone to take accountability for something, a hiccup, something that was missed, and then everyone can move on, whether they officially move on with someone else or they move on in the sense of they're going to give you another chance and the relationship is in repair. I think, putting myself in the shoes of a client, I like to know what we're paying for. And I like choices. When we made the transition from a blend of hourly and fixed to value pricing, we kind of had to think about, essentially, we're going from one kind of version of a service to more than one. We're going from 1 to 3, 3-tiered kind of service. For example, our bookkeeping packages, I guess the bottom tier, we make sure, like, the timeline is that you receive the prior month's reports by the 25th of the month. The middle tier is you receive reports by the 15th of the month. And the top tier is you receive reports of the prior month by the 10th of the month. Obviously, the top tier is going to be paying more than the middle, also paying more than the bottom tier. But I mean, you get your information sooner, faster. If you need something way quicker, at times there's a price attached to that special request. But we have that structure in place because, again, we just want to make it really clear and just kind of giving people a bit more choice and just being really clear, communicating all of that. So number 7, the next question, pricing. I think it's so important that you have to be transparent about your prices. And I know that might sound funny because there's no prices on our website. When I say transparency, I am just not a fan of hourly pricing. I could get on my soapbox and just talk about this for way too long, but I'm very passionate about it. And I mean, fixed fee, it's okay. Fixed fees are okay. I think where we're the most satisfied and we're happiest is definitely more value pricing. It jives well with our clients and they are aware that it's heavily customized, and yeah, it just works. We're able to grow revenue in a sensible way, in a unique way, because we don't have to grow necessarily by tons of volume of clients. We can just grow by providing more value. And we have a whole process. We have pricing software for that. So that kind of takes the load off. I don't have to just sit there and just kind of come up with prices in front of them with no real logic. The software supports it. I don't want to give our clients surprises when it comes to billing. I really don't. I really just want them to be able to just have an easier time, be more at ease with their money. It's really important to me how you spend money in your business. It's a scarcity versus abundance mindset, and I think that does kick in sometimes. But I would say, unfortunately, a lot of people are just racing to the bottom in their pricing, and I think it just kind of I don't even know what the word is. It just really, the word is disappoint. It disappoints me because I think it's a very, very valuable service and I think it should be more fairly priced. I really do. And I kind of think that this might be unpopular to say, but I think sometimes when people race to the bottom and they charge, like they have this feeling that they are charging quite low. Like I'm talking pretty low for what you know the client is getting and how much experience and how much like confidence and how much passion you have if you're pricing very low, like bargain basement, like really, really low. Sometimes I wonder, is it because, you're doubting yourself? Is it because, sales conversations are just, you don't want to have them. You don't want to have to persuade or convince, but I'm telling you, that will actually repel clients because if you're pricing way too low, then that also, if you price too high, you price too low, it's all subjective. It's like, I can't sit here and tell you what's too high, what's too low. But clients are smarter than you think. And when you're pricing too low, it kind of rubs them the wrong way. I mean, if they have a good head on their shoulders, they're going to start wondering like, well, are you actually qualified? Like, why is it this price? So I'd rather have the conversation, honestly, than just kind of send the quote in the mail. That's just me. I'm not trying to say, do this, do that. It's just sharing what we're doing. So scope creep. Yes. So I've had other bookkeepers share with me on Friday mornings, right? Like we talk a lot about scope creep and when a client is asking for more and more and it becomes unrecognizable what the original agreement, what the original service looks like. So you kind of need to just tell them, hey, basically something along the lines of, we're happy to help you in this area. Please be aware that your scope is now changed and now it's going to be this, especially if it's ongoing. Like let's say they opened up another credit card account or something. So they've gone from 4 credit cards to 5 or something like that. That's an ongoing adjustment when they're engaged with monthly bookkeeping. So you just need to have the conversation. And typically with us, it's a written heads up and then we can totally chat on Zoom and talk about what the immediate price, how it's going to be affected and so on. What clients need to realize sometimes is that when you're considering contracting out bookkeeping services instead of obviously hiring someone, if they're balking at a price that you should be charging more for, you need to remind them of your value, your passion, the quality, the importance, the significance of what you're doing and what it means for their business. At the end of the day, if they were to hire in-house, that would require a lot more training, a lot more hand-holding. When you're hiring like an independent kind of contractor, like a solo bookkeeper, or obviously whether it be a solo bookkeeper or a small team, like a small firm or something, they're going to be more independent. You got to know what you're paying for. I just think about when we were transitioning clients from hourly and then some of them are fixed to value pricing. It was not overnight and they had a lot of questions. They didn't know what it really would mean for them. And, we took a big leap of faith and it worked out. I think it comes back to getting used to selling, getting used to communicating your value, and you're not going to be for everyone. And it's a tough pill to swallow. Not everyone is going to want to work with you. Not everyone's going to understand what you're trying to do here in business. And some people just won't want to work with you. It's not personal. It's just the way it is. And frankly, even if everyone in the world wanted to work with you, that's impossible. You wouldn't have the capacity, and nor would you. I mean, there are clients that it probably wasn't the best idea to work with them, and so we've said no. We say no a lot actually to some prospects because they're just, even if they're in the industry that we help, that we specialize in, it just, I don't know, it's not necessarily, sometimes we don't have capacity, sometimes it's just it's just not right. We have had clients come back when they're ready, or they've DIY'd and then they've come back, and you know, it's just timing. It's just timing. I try to detach from a certain result that I think should happen, because otherwise I'll be more, you know, I'll be like devastated if it doesn't work out a certain way. All right, so question number 8 is who will I work with directly? So it's kind of like figuring out your direct contact. So this, I think I might have said this earlier, but it sets the tone for the entire relationship. So some firms, how they operate, they'll have a dedicated bookkeeper. Some firms have a team, a small team of people that will reach out to you upon different levels. I know I'm repeating myself, but it comes back to like just having more clarity and just figuring out, like, is it clear? Is it transparent? When you have questions, who do you go to? Who are you going to ultimately build rapport with over time? We used to subcontract our services out to an accounting firm out in Halifax, actually. They were really cool to work with. It was interesting because how they ran their firm, they kind of operated like, I used to work a few years ago, I used to work at an IT company. And I believe this accounting firm was using software that was meant for IT companies. And how it worked was their clients, if they had a question or a request, they would submit a ticket to the software. And I thought that was really cool. I mean, I know they were definitely paying quite a bit for this software, but it worked for them. And it worked for the kind of clients that they were, their ideal clients, who they were naturally attracting and who they naturally wanted in their orbit, in their world to work with, right? And I thought that was really cool. One of our clients said to us that when they worked with one of the previous bookkeepers in the past, she said that she got along with one of the owners, and then she realized that it wasn't really clear to her, but I guess there was a missed opportunity, I think, because the firm didn't explain to her or bother explaining to her that there would be others on her file and she wouldn't really talk to the first person, likely the owner or the partner. I think some people just really crave that first initial connection. My parents have a numbered company and they do get bounced around, and the relationship is with the partner, of course, but they don't like being bounced around, the team of bookkeepers. I can imagine that would be quite jarring. I've worked at bigger accounting firms and bigger bookkeeping firms, and they do bounce you around. You got to figure out what your tolerance level is, really, what you're comfortable with, and just look for, over time, your bookkeeper should be giving you more peace and clarity. You want someone who's honest and who is accountable and who seeks to improve, because we're going to make mistakes. We're human. I would never sit here and say I'm the bookkeeper that is perfect or makes no mistakes. That would just be a straight up lie. So, number 9, technical background. Okay, so is the bookkeeper tech savvy? This is a huge one because we're living in a digital age. We really are. So you need to, ask them what their comfort level is with software. Are they passionate about cloud services? Do they like using apps? How do they feel about integrations? If you're using certain apps right now, is the bookkeeper knowledgeable of those apps? And this can really impact the efficiency and the accessibility of ultimately, financial data, but that's ultimately knowledge. Nowadays, great bookkeepers, they appreciate and understand the tech as well as obviously the principles, the bookkeeping, the accounting principles. You need to find someone that can demonstrate that they're comfortable and that they're passionate to know more. We've talked to some prospects recently, and one of two situations happen. So the first situation is a client will come to us and they'll say, oh, I've linked up this app to QuickBooks Online, but something's wrong. We kind of do a quick assessment, and I've talked about the diagnostic review. We're looking at the 20 areas of their books, right? We're really diving in and just looking to see. And when I see what they've hooked up and what's going on there, I mean, integrations are hard. They're really hard to get right. Sometimes the support of an app, I'm not saying that it's not good, but it can be inconsistent. While the app may say they provide excellent support, sometimes it's just a certain agent that you're dealing with. I have found that with QuickBooks Online. I think when you're a giant of a company, sometimes that's just going to, statistically, that's going to happen more. There's a higher chance, a higher likelihood that your support maybe won't sometimes. So, I mean, there's been poor integration that causes a lot of errors in the books, and you're not going to get the data that you need. And then the second scenario is, and this really breaks my heart and just disappoints me so much, is when they've had a previous bookkeeper or a previous accountant. Usually it's a bookkeeper. It breaks my heart when it's a previous bookkeeper and the integration is either not done or it's done really poorly. And that's really tough. That's not good. So that does create a mess. And the thing is, it may sound kind of, oh, that's not a big deal, or surely that mess isn't. The thing is, these messes grow. It may seem like a small mess. You can only really laugh about the mess when you've solved it, when you or an expert has solved it. I've seen a lot of blunders with tech when they're talking to each other and it just doesn't make sense and it's just all gobbledygook and none of it makes sense. You really want to make sure that your bookkeeper is at least tech savvy. They're friendly with tech. So last question is, where is the work performed? So as they say, right, in real estate, location, location, location. So workplace, you need to know if this bookkeeper that you're considering hiring, do they work on site? Do they work remotely? Or is it a bit of a mix? This is going to really influence your decision if you want to really hire them or not. It might be a deal breaker if the bookkeeper's like, nope, remote only. Because I know on site it's easier to exchange information and ask questions. We've had prospects when we tell them that we only work remotely. We don't, I guess compromise is the right word, or stray from that. We don't negotiate. We don't negotiate on that. We work remotely. I think there's at least one prospect where it wasn't really for them. And it was really funny because how we got their attention was they noticed that we were really close to their business location wise. If we walked to the business, I think it would have been 7-minute walk. And nope, we work remotely. I think they were really shocked that we weren't gonna negotiate on that. But I mean, you're a business owner, you get to decide how you work and you don't have to apologize. You don't have to explain yourself. You get to decide, you have autonomy, it's your decision, it's your business. You can decide how you work. That's the whole point. So yeah, that might be a deal breaker. We don't do hybrid work. We just do remote. So yeah, I mean, it's 10 questions. I've talked forever about this. You're not just vetting someone when you're looking to hire talent. It's really about figuring out who's the right fit and who's going to help your business grow. Bookkeeping they're not just number crunchers. First of all, that tells me so much when I hear people say, oh, bean counters and number crunchers. They don't actually know what they're talking about, because bookkeepers can do a lot more. And there are so many things that we get in the door that we have to clean up. And it's not necessarily just catch-up work. We're actually cleaning up a mess. And a lot of people don't know that they have a mess. And, it's serious, You want to make sure that you're taking it seriously and you're giving your business more, you're fueling it, right? Like, it's so hard. It's hard enough to run a business and have it be sustainable, but you also want to give it a higher chance of success. You really do. You really do. You can hire strategically. This is why I'm very passionate about sharing how to tell one bookkeeper from another. That's where I can provide some value for you today. I hope this was helpful. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. I definitely welcome that. Thank you for sticking with me today, and I really hope these questions help.